In Part 3, we are going to address this question. How do the 2015-2016 program shifts impact your mentoring repertoire? According to Sharon Feynman-Nimzer, mentors need a flexible repertoire to help new teachers get inside the practical and intellectual demands of teaching. Part 3 outlines the new tools and practices of instructional mentoring beginning in the fall of 2015. These tools will enable you to modify and increase your instructional mentoring repertoire that you will continually use as you design instructional mentoring conversations to tailor individual support for your resident educator. This learning will be more meaningful to you if you have your Mentor Toolkit available as we discuss the Mentor tools. The Mentor Toolkit cover conveys an important message. Strategic and purposeful instructional mentoring can be compared to playing chess. This game demands a clear vision that is more than just making individual moves. Each move is strategically made with the big picture in mind. Instructional mentoring can be compared to a chess game in the following ways: mentor vision, strategic and deliberate moves, infinite number of choices, reciprocity of decisions and moves, and their impact. Mentor vision for resident educators requires the big picture, which informs or guides each mentor move. There are an infinite number of plays that are possible to be made. There is no one way to provide instructional mentoring, but all effective moves lead to the shared vision. The mentor carefully plans mentor moves tailored to specific resident educator needs to help them grow and develop in their teaching practices. In this part, we will discuss each item included in the Mentor Toolkit, including the Ohio Continuum of Teacher Development, Teaching and Learning Experiences, the Collaborative Log, the Resident Educator Program Standards at a Glance, the Mentor Standards at a Glance, Gathering and Synthesizing Data Tool, Self-Assessment Tool, Professional Growth Plan Tool, and the Instructional Mentor Tool. The Ohio Continuum of Teacher Development supports Ohio's educators as they develop the skills and knowledge necessary to provide the highest quality of education to Ohio students. Based on the Ohio Standards for the Teaching Profession, the Continuum describes teachers' progress throughout the residency and induction phase of their career. The 5 cumulative levels of development include emerging, developing, proficient, accomplished, and distinguished. The philosophy behind the Continuum is that teachers will continue to grow over the course of their induction with the assistance of a system that supports their growth and development. The Continuum is an important tool in the resident educator program. It provides professional vision and steps for growth for mentors and resident educators. It should guide or be a part of every instructional mentor's repertoire and should be used during instructional mentoring conversations. You may also choose to refer to the video in the Mentor Refresh module to see this practice in action between a mentor and a resident educator. If interested, please view the Nicole and Allison video for an example. When considering the repertoire of a mentor, you may recall the 5 key words required for effective instructional mentoring: inquiry, collaboration, analysis, reflection, and evidence, forming the acronym I CARE. Delivering the support to resident educators should involve the use of inquiry, collaboration, analysis, reflection, and evidence. As an instructional mentor, you will need to possess a variety of resources, tools, and methods to ensure your resident educator has learning experiences that allow them to engage in these processes. During their 3rd year, when they take the Resident Educator Summative Assessment, also known as RESA, resident educators will be expected to provide evidence using these processes. The more practice you provide during mentoring, the better prepared resident educators will be to utilize them on the RESA. Residency Teaching and Learning Experiences. This document found in the Mentor Toolkit replaces the yearly timelines and provides the 4-year overview of the Resident Educator Program. This document describes the teaching practices outlined by the Ohio Standards for the Teaching Profession that you must ensure your resident educators experience over and over throughout the mentoring years. The residency teaching and learning experiences defines the tasks that are important to successful teachers each and every day. The first column outlines the teaching practices that resident educators must experience, refine, and internalize during the mentoring years. This column outlines what you and your resident educator are striving to accomplish during the mentoring years in order to prepare for the RESA. The second column lists authentic evidence and activities that the resident educators and mentors could produce during their mentoring years. Some of these items are included in the toolkit, and others are items that could be district developed or even mentor created. This column describes how you and your resident educator can accomplish the practices found in column 1. The third column describes how resident educators are required to demonstrate their proficiency in these practices through the Resident Educator Summative Assessment. And the fourth column describes possible leadership opportunities that districts may design for resident educators during their last year of the Resident Educator program. Please note the asterisks in columns 2 and 3. This denotes required practices for the Resident Educator program. As we move through the next sections of this presentation, we will be taking a deeper look at the items in the first column. To help you build your repertoire, we will discuss the items in the second column and how they support the activities in the first column. As we discuss each type, we will also make connections to the RESA. If you feel you get an idea that will help you with your mentoring, please take a moment to write those ideas down on the optional handout. These ideas will help enhance and build your repertoire of mentoring. The first item in the first column of the Teaching and Learning Experiences document is demonstration and understanding of the teaching and learning cycle. During residency, resident educators should be practicing and improving their implementation of the teaching and learning cycle. As a mentor, you should create opportunities for your resident educator to practice and reflect on their effective implementation of this cycle. Some suggested activities could include the following. 1. Through collaborative conversations, you can use the Instructional Mentor Tool questions to help you construct meaningful conversations in regards to the teaching and learning cycle. Both the Collaborative Log and the Instructional Mentor Tool are found in the Mentor Toolkit. In addition, an electronic version of the Collaborative Log is now available online. We will look at the Instructional Mentoring Tool more in depth later in this presentation. 2. You may also find that videotaping lessons could serve as a useful method to reflect with a resident educator on their implementation of the teaching and learning cycle. When the resident educator takes the RESA, he or she will be asked to videotape 2 lessons that provide evidence of the teacher's understanding of the teaching and learning cycle. RESA also requires resident educators to provide written commentary to support how the lesson in the video shows a high level of understanding of the teaching and learning cycle. As a mentor, you may choose to practice this with your resident educator by asking them to write commentaries for lessons to provide evidence of understanding the teaching and learning cycle. We encourage you to review these written commentaries against the RESA scoring rubrics so resident educators understand the rubrics and what will be expected of them. If you are interested in how resident educators will be expected to demonstrate comprehension of the teaching and learning cycle, please look at Task 1, known as the first lesson cycle, and Task 3, known as the second lesson cycle, in the RESA instrument available for download at www.ohioRESA.com. The second item in the first column of the Teaching and Learning Experiences document is authentic teacher work. During residency, the educator should utilize authentic work conducted in the classroom to have reflective conversations with their mentor. Together, the resident educator and mentor should look at the lesson planning, assessment, and analysis of student learning during collaborative conversations documented with a collaborative log. Mentors will find in the Instructional Mentoring Tool 3 columns of questions that target this expectation. Assessment in the green column, instructional planning in the red column, and analysis of student work in the yellow column. These questions can help plan an effective collaborative conversation around any of the topics. Districts across the state have varying expectations of lesson planning, assessment of student learning, and analysis of student work. If your district utilizes specific templates to aid teachers in these practices, share these with your resident educator along with the district expectations that accompany these templates. If your district allows for the teacher to develop or use their own tools, work with your resident educator to find tools and methods to help with accomplishing these tasks. You will find a sample data tool in the Mentor Toolkit that could be useful to use with your resident educator when analyzing student work. Resident educators will be expected to provide authentic teacher work when completing the RESA. Teachers will need to keep record of lesson plans, samples of student work, and other pieces of evidence to aid in completing the expectations on RESA. To see what those expectations are for RESA, please review the submission documents in the RESA instrument for Task 1, known as the first lesson cycle, Task 2, known as formative and summative assessment, and Task 3, known as the second lesson cycle. The third item in the first column of the Teaching and Learning Experiences document is reflective practices. During mentoring, the mentor serves as a coach to the resident educator to help guide them as they reflect on their daily teaching practices. Through the collaborative conversations held between the mentor and resident educator, the resident educator should be responding to reflective questions posed by their mentor in regards to their teaching. A tool for mentors that is included in the toolkit is the Instructional Mentor tool specific to reflection, found in the gold column. Much of the RESA assessment includes questions that require the resident educator to reflect on their practice. Instead of always having collaborative discussions, consider having your resident educator put the reflections in writing to help strengthen their ability to provide the necessary evidence through their professional writing. Again, use the RESA scoring rubrics so resident educators understand the rubrics and what will be expected of them. Resident educators must also analyze and reflect on student data. The data tool in the Mentor Toolkit may provide as a starting place for resident educators as they learn and refine the practice of analyzing and reflecting on student data. Again, if districts mandate specific data collection tools be used, ensure your resident educator is comfortable with using the tool to gather critical information that impacts instructional decisions. Videotaping and replaying a lesson for a teacher is another strategy that will help with the reflection of teaching practices. Again, resident educators are expected to do this on the RESA. The fourth item in the first column of the Teaching and Learning Experiences document is teaching observations. Receiving feedback from an observer can be a valuable method for professional growth. During their mentoring years, resident educators should be observed by their mentor and engage in reciprocal observations as desired. Knowing what skills the teacher has designated as an area to refine will allow the observer to focus on those areas to provide feedback and coaching. The self-assessment tool and professional growth plan, both found in the Mentor Toolkit as well as in online interactive formats on the Ohio Department of Education's website, could provide the mentor with a guide during the observation to allow for a more focused learning experience. As a mentor, you may want to research how to use observation logs or scripting to help during observations. Having evidence from an observation will aid with engaging in useful, productive, collaborative conversations during post-observation conferences. Also, when a resident educator observes another teacher, whether it is their mentor, peer, or exemplary teacher, utilizing an observation log will help to focus the resident educator during the observation. The last item in the first column of the Teaching and Learning Experiences document is professional development practices. A resident educator does not participate in the local professional development committee and therefore does not have an individual professional development plan. The resident educator receives their professional development through the residency program. However, the mentor may assist the resident educator in finding local and non-local sessions that could prove useful for the resident educator's learning. As a mentor, you should tailor the mentoring years to the teacher's individual needs and work with them throughout the school year to improve instructional practices. As an experienced mentor, you now know that resident educators enter residency with varied experiences and talents. Other activities that promote professional learning may become necessary with a resident educator. As needs develop, the mentor can adjust the activities to reflect the priorities of the teacher. 4 years of residency provides opportunities for each resident educator to accelerate their teaching practices through formative assessment and differentiated mentoring. Our term for this is tailored support. You have learned about tailoring support throughout your mentoring career. We are now asking you to use it more intentionally. One of your most important mentor responsibilities is getting to know your resident educators. Take time to know them as they enter residency and continue to follow their progress in order to select appropriate mentor models and mentor moves that tailor support. Be knowledgeable about the Resident Educator Summative Assessment and use the activities conducted during the mentoring years to support the activities and expectations of the RESA in order to ensure the future success of your resident educators. Take a moment to read the Part 3 Check for Understanding and write reflections on the handout. Thank you for participating in this training. As you continue to prepare for instructional mentoring, remember that all of us, at every stage of our teaching profession, should continually ask the question, how can I be a better educator tomorrow than I was today, and lead others to do the same? We appreciate your commitment to being a teacher of teachers, a teacher leader. For more information, strategies, use of mentor tools, videos that model mentor conversations, go to Mentor Refresh and Mentor Renew.